So my process of thought is pretty radical when looking at things and checking things out. Like, nothing really interests me that much. And when it comes to the SU25BM, it's really just an SU25. Like, there's nothing that you could do to the plane that would convince me that it is going to be better than the original one is. You can add IRCM in the back, you can upgrade it however you like, but still, it's an SU25 and the airframe has limitations, and that's what I found about the SU25BM. It's really such a pain to fly that everybody just talked about it and how horrible it is to experience at 11.3. But at the same time, you get the R73s, and sadly it's the only plane that has R73s. And that's what the hype is about, is these two missiles that everybody think or used to think that they are broken. There are many people that still think it is absolutely broken OP, but I debunked that so many times, people just didn't want to listen, and guess what? I got flamed for it. Lots of people just told me I don't know what I'm talking about, all that research that I did is nonsense, and yeah. But when it's actually finally in the game, even though that it's so broken in terms of the thrust vectoring aspect of it, like actually broken in the sense that it doesn't work, they can see that the flare resistance is really not that something huge. Actually, a lot of people didn't talk about the Python 3 ignoring flares when it first came out. They just said, oh yeah, well, it's a Python 3, but as soon as Russia gets something, of course it's Russian bias. Of course, people listen to one singular thing, it like words like ECCM and thrust vectoring and all of that, and they think like it's some type of alien technology that has never been discovered by the West before. Which actually makes you really think about the state of War Thunder and how its community and a ton of its players are basing their judgments on, and everything about that. Now, I'm not saying that the community doesn't know what they're talking about. I'm just saying that there is a good portion of people that just spread false information within the community just to overhype and at the end of the day serve their own agenda. But back to the topic at hand. Since these missiles are new, I did a couple of tests, and only one video came out of that, and a lot of people actually saw it. And the R-73 is pretty amazing. It's quote-unquote a new meta, dare I say. So I'm kind of confused, because here's where my confusion stems from. Okay, you give us the access of R-73s, but at the same time, the Su-25 cannot carry 4 of them, even though that it could, historically. So you're forced into carrying a couple of R-60s, a couple of R-73s, you're forced to play at 11.3, which gets you up-tiered, like 98% of the times to see 4th gen jets at 12.0. And because of the limitations of the plane, you're always late to the battlefield. By that time, the match is already done. Everybody knows that. You can't even go for bases or ground pound because the middle of the map, the battlefield, is going to be littered with the enemy team. And that will absolutely take a toll on you, because every time you try to do something, if you're trying to go for a plane, they're already anticipating you. They're already anticipating that R-73, so you cannot use it in a head-on situation. The strength of the R-73, though, is on the side, kinda, and from the back. And especially at close ranges, the ECCM actually works, and it completely ignores flares, which is something really good. A lot of people also don't really turn off their afterburner when trying to evade this missile, which makes it like cherry on the top. Because like I said, this is a new meta of air-to-air missiles, and it's going to really punish the players for their mistakes. And if you think that this is going to be less and less of a thing in the future because, well, there are differences in flares and all of that, no, it's not. Actually, missiles tend to become way better in terms of their flare resistance and their maneuverability, and it's going to be way harder for those planes to dodge missiles. So for the people that are going to say, okay, the R-73 is absolutely OP and broken, yeah, there you have it. It's inevitable. In the future, you need to use your brain. In the future, you need to play tactically. In the future, you can't just use one flare and that's about it, and you'll dodge the missile like we do with R60s and AIM-9Ls right now. That's the thing. And really, when it comes to this missile, we cannot unlock its full potential since it's on a really bad airframe. It's kind of like the SRAMs on the Hunter F6. Yes, they are really good missiles, but at the same time, you don't get that speed to catch up to people and use the missile. And that's what the SU25 is really like, the SU25BM. Another thing about the plane is, and Gaijin is not implementing this because we cannot literally find any documents about it, because the topic of the SU25 itself is really ambiguous in terms of historical documents, is HMD. I know for a fact that the SU25T has HMD, yes, but we don't have it. I know for a fact that the SU25BM has HMD, but we don't have it. We actually tried to talk to gaijin about it and basically get them installed. We tried to come up with best documents that we could find, but sadly it's really hard to convince them since there is no like tangible historical data about it. But as far as I know, every single SU25 that got the upgrade into the hood and all of that, they got and the R70s, the R73, especially the upgrades to the R73, they basically got their HMD installed because the R73 was meant to be used with HMD since it can pull those crazy shots. Another really interesting thing that I found about the missile itself is it has 45 degrees of thrust vectoring, which makes it the R73E. It's the export model of the R73. It's not the first variant of the R73 because that has 40 degrees of thrust vectoring. The missile also should be 50 Gs, but we only get 40, I guess for balancing reasons and all of that. Gaijin really likes to do this type of stuff. So yeah, when it comes to all of this, I don't know how to say it, but idiocy that Gaijin is doing, I don't know. Bring a really good missile on a terrible plane that really nobody can use. I mean, if you don't want to buy the SU39 or an SU25, if you don't want to buy anything actually, and you want to have a good cast jet, I guess the SU25BM is going to be your choice, especially if you didn't grind the SU25s, because I know a lot of people that have tanks but don't have planes and they want to get into planes, but the grind is too long for them. So I guess it's one way, but for the regular air players like me, it's really not that impressive. It's lackluster, it feels very bad. At the end of the day, it's an SU25 at a very high BR because of two missiles that it carries that are actually really good. So to conclude, the SU25BM has one of the most unique and top of the line missiles in the game. However, the airframe itself is the limitation.